reason that I'm here is because the club is seeking change.
He said, well, whether you come or not, you're going to see a completely different Spurs team under me.
My hope and my desire and what I'm going to try and do is give our supporters hope and belief that we're going to embark on something special.
Welcome into the Tottenham Depot. I am your host, Andrew. You can follow me at Astedka. You can follow us at Tottenham Depot. This is episode 197. We have got, surprisingly enough, 3 victories to talk about for Tottenham Hotspur this week. It is going to be a fun one here. We've got our friend Todd alongside. He is at TC_show. TC, what is up, my man?
Any day, brother. Any day you can get together with your mates and talk about 3 Tottenham victories in one single week is a good fucking day. And today is going to be that day. And we actually get to talk about a competition later on. It's just a tease for those playing at home, in which we're going to play for a trophy, and there is no Man City or Arsenal in sight.
What a miracle. Yes, we will talk a little bit of Europa League as that gets fired up later this week, later on in the show. Caroline is also alongside at CG Stefko. Kaz, how are you on this fine Sunday?
I'm feeling very buoyant. It is a good weekend to be Coys, and I can't wait to talk about it.
I love that. Short and sweet. Scott is with us as well at Scott G. Bird. Scott, what is up, my man?
Great week, like everybody already said. No reason to be apathetic or apathetic to Spurs at the moment, which for me is always a wonderful thing. So yeah, happy to be here.
Yes, no question. Scott's on board. Scott's going this week from I don't know about Spurs to we're winning the league. So we'll get to hear about that as well.
It's crazy how in a matter of days you can go from assuming we're going to finish like 12th or 13th to probably winning the league. So that's just modern football for you. But yeah, up the Spurs.
No question about it. We are delighted to be partnered up with Digital Spurs. Digital Spurs artwork you put to your favorite apparel, t-shirts, hoodies, sweatshirts, hats, and so much more. You can see if you're watching us on the YouTube channel, youtube.com/Tottenham Depot, you can see some of our merch that we are rocking. I've got a Tottenham Till I Die hat on right now. Todd's rocking the Tottenham Till They Kill Me mug, drinking his coffee on this fine Sunday morning on the West Coast. We've got it all. Give a shout out to Danny Garrison. He creates these pieces, which we rock all the time. Keep an eye out later this year, too, for a special promotion that we're going to be doing with Digital Spurs. Head over to digitalspurs.com, find your new favorite merch, and let them know we here at the Tottenham Depot sent you. As I mentioned, guys, 3 victories for Spurs, and we're going to do this chronologically this week, and we're going to try and we'll try and bang it all out here. It started out in midweek with Spurs going away to Coventry City, and I have a feeling we'll be talking a little bit about this one because this was not a good performance for Spurs, but they completely pulled it, I think, out of their ass. A 2-1 victory at Coventry City to survive and advance in the League Cup to the 4th round. This was 8 lineup changes from the Arsenal match last week. Udogie, Bentancur, and Solanke returned to the lineup, but 8 other changes, including in goal, which I really do want to come on to. But this was nervy, right, Todd? I mean, this was not a performance that was a good performance, but they got the job done in the end, and it's almost like I don't even know what else to say other than it was a cup match. It was very, very cuppy.
Okay, so I think that I was actually this is the quintessential, I'm really excited to see my team play today. I don't ever want to watch football again. Oh, hey, look, we won. Yeah. But I think that that's kind of what you expect when you looked at the team sheet and you hit us with a brother in the chat. And like, I understand. You see that many changes. You see the statue formerly known as Fraser Forster in goal, and you wonder what your life is going to be like for the next 90 minutes. And I value the heck out of that. But also, we have all of these players, and we can go through the 11 if you like to and hit it for the ones that started and what they were doing. We have all these players that we need to get reps, that we need to get time. Like Solanke, everybody said Solanke definitely needs to get the minutes in this match. So 100% you start him. We all wanted to see Odebear. We all wanted to, get Timo back on the right. track, whatever that is. We all wanted these things to happen. We knew we wanted Bergvall to get minutes. Ange trusts Sarr a bunch, and so you knew he was going to play. Bentancur was clearly the best player on the pitch that day for us for the entire match, which we'll come on to him when we for the entire
not the entire match.
But anyhow, I want to hear your perspective on that, Kaz. But then you look at the back and you're like, we knew Ben Davies was going to come in, right? And Udogie started, which is fine. Archie Gray instead of Jed Spence was maybe the question, right? And then you look at Dragusin, who we knew was going to get his run out, and he played really well also. So, dude, when you look at that and then you take a step back and you go, well, Ange is notorious for making Kaz nervous with his subs and when he does them. And then he did those things, and then our regular players came on with fresh legs at 70 minutes or 75 minutes, whatever it was, and we got the goals that we needed to get through in this round. If you look at this 4 weeks from now, you're going to go, oh, that was a rotated side that Ange played so that we could be fresh and have a really strong performance at Brentford at the weekend. What a smart guy. But for us fans, we're going to stick this thing under a microscope and say, oh my gosh, I think we could do with having some a 30,000 foot view of this one and just keep it moving.
I think all of that is really, really fair. Caroline, I know you and I were on the same page with the Fraser Forrester thing. And I think here's the reason, if I may, you don't want to end up in a penalty shootout with Fraser Forrester in goal, right? I mean, that was the main thing for me. And I think we all know he's not really a fit for this system. And he did not, I think, play that well, but job done, right?
Job done, but I don't think thanks to him at all. I had this extreme moment of panic as we neared the end of the game, and we had equalized, and I'm thinking this is going to penalties. Like, oh my God, we don't have a sub left. We don't have a sub window even. Like, this is bad. And I think I saw quite a few people defending Forster, which fair enough, that's your prerogative, saying that he had some great saves, and I'll concede that he did, but they were all brought about by his own mistakes. And the simple truth is that he's not a good fit for the way that we play now. And I'm really questioning what Brandon Austin did to deserve not getting the nod for this game. It just does not make sense to me, especially from the perspective of, at least Austin is still fairly young as a goalkeeper goes and could have some, room for growth and potentially be a solid option for us down the line if he actually ever got some game time. So yeah, I was just very upset about that selection decision in particular. And I don't want to see it again, frankly.
Well, where else would you play Fraser? So maybe there's a game. Well, and this is my point. Like, if he's got a game guarantee, if he's got a game guarantee in his contract, right? At least one match, at least however many minutes, whatever the hell it is, you're only going to have so many opportunities to do that. And the earliest round that you can do that in is going to be this. And the game that means the least is going to be this, right? And so, and maybe a couple of dead ringers at the end of the Europa League, if there's even that opportunity in this new format. I don't know how that's going to go. Right. So when
it's probably less likely, but I hear you. And I'll be interested.
This is my whole point.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see if he does get any time in the Europa League, even perhaps this Thursday as Spurs open up the Europa League campaign. It will be an interesting thing, I think, to monitor. But with the rest of the lineup, Todd, you even mentioned the Jed Spence thing, and apparently that was completely planned. Was play Udogie for 45 minutes, play Spence for 45 minutes. I think that just kind of speaks to, because I think you kind of tied it with why is Archie Gray playing out on the right side? Like, yeah, there's a little bit of perhaps a fullback depth issue on the grander scheme of things to where you need to do those sorts of things. Scott, what was your take on this performance? Because I think you were maybe along with me the most negative in our group chat about this performance as a whole, despite it being a job done situation. What was your takeaway after watching this 2-1 victory, which didn't really quite feel like a victory?
Yeah, I still think our system's, I don't want to say broken, but fractured for sure. And I still actually after Brentford feel that our system is somewhat fractured, as crazy as that sounds. But I think it was evident against Coventry. It took individual brilliance from our two most creative players, without a doubt, in Kulusevski and Madison, to scrape out a win, which is okay, right? In this match, to Todd's point of Fraser getting a start, right? This was a match where you give guys a shot to prove whether or not they're capable of being part of the first team setup, and if it's not working, you ask your stars to bail you out. So it's exactly what happened. A few guys, Timo Werner, for example, probably didn't do themselves any favors when it comes to continuing to be a part of the setup, right? And probably Fraser Forster as well. So we got the job done, and in that match, you win or you lose. We're not drawing pictures. We're looking at a scoreline. Scoreline says we won. Fine, we move on, right? But I think our system is fractured at best. And again, even after Brentford yesterday in a 3-1 victory, I'm not confident in the system we're playing, and we'll get to that, right? But for me, it's all around questions that I'm starting to ask with regards to the tactics and the way we're approaching matches right now.
It's all, I think it's all really well said, and I think you're going to find that when there's 8 changes. The last two things I want to kind of hit on with this game before we move on to talking a little bit more about the grander scheme and Brentford specifically, is kind of what you guys mentioned, is the stars having to come in late and rescue this one. I thought not only Dejan Kulusevski looked brilliant when he came on for the final 15 minutes or so and kind of sparked what I thought were those 2 goals, but Madison and Sonny as well. And then Brennan Johnson kind of forced into a situation where he has to come on because of the Wilson Odobert injury. And I thought Brennan obviously got the goal, had the iconic celebration with the shushing motion. And, that was that like his week as a whole, as we kind of tie it into the Brentford game, but him getting that goal in the cup match and just performing as well as he did, I thought was really, really crucial. And Jed Spence getting his goal as well. But just kind of, what do we think about like the redemption factor? I guess I don't even really want to call it that, because the Brennan story this week was so weird. It was all kind of conjured up online as this thing that he's facing, this adversity that he's facing. But he had a really good week, and I think that I just wanted to kind of point that out because he was big.
Yeah, I'd love to talk about that at the end of the Brentford game. I think to put a bow on the Coventry game, I think that the Jed Spence redemption arc was really the story of that match. In the way that he came in, not only took his goal like he's been playing in that system his whole life, which was awesome. The inverted left back, crashing the box, taking the give and go from Decky like a chief. Just, dude, Decky doing point guard shit again from the middle. He's my player of the season this year. But anyway, Jed Spence in this game, flawless against Coventry when he came in defensively. And that was my big thing, is what, he's playing on the left. How's it going to go? He looked like a champ. Rolling into Brentford, though, and kind of teasing the Brennan aspect of things. The big story around him, obviously, is the fact that after the Arsenal match, he deleted his Instagram, right? As Expressions likes to say, he deleted his Instagram like he was dropping a new album. And apparently the first 2 singles are hits, because God bless it. I thought that the coolness with which he hit that dagger through the heart of the Coventry fans in their own faces was it was Stevie Bergwijn against Leicester-esque. And I was like,
that's a throwback.
All right. That's fire. I'll take that little kiss off of the inside there and have a nice little afternoon. And I think that what that goal was, as we talked about in the chat after the game, Andrew, was a confidence boost. And so when you come onto the game against Brentford and you see the way in which he took his goal, which was the best goal out of all the goals scored, love to James Madison, but the best goal out of all the goals scored was that absolute rocket from the boot. And you say what you want to say about the Brentford goal. It was a fine volley, but that Brennan Johnson goal was spicy as hell. And it's the goal that led Ange to signing Brennan Johnson and backing him in the system as well as he has, is the fact that he can score that goal when he wants to. And it was beautiful. I pointed out to my kids, we were watching it, and I was like, stutter step, slow motion, watch this goal. I was like, his little hesitation not only froze the defender, but it made the keeper take a step and a half to his left, and that opened up the far post, and he slotted it home. It was absolutely sexy.
Let's definitively shift into talking about Brentford now. Before we fully move on from the Coventry match, I will just note on the Wilson Odegaard injury, it sounds like a fairly significant injury, which is what Ange was, I think, quoted at. Hamstring injury. Although Leah Quip reports he will only be out about a month, so we'll see how kind of real that is and track that one. It's a tough blow because I've really liked what I've seen from Odegaard in the early going. Just kind of one of those things that happens. And Timo was also injured in that match. He made his way back to the bench for the Brentford game, so that seems fine. It seems like Spurs avoided getting 2 injuries to winger types, but the Odegaard one is going to be a little bit of an absence from him. So we did not get to see him feature against Brentford at all. But as we shift to talking about the Brentford match, it was actually an unchanged 11 from the Arsenal game. It was the same 11 that came back in this one. No surprises there for me, Caroline. Any for you? I was kind of fine with Ange returning to form, although to me, when we talk about comparing the Arsenal match to the Brentford match, to me, it was like just an overall much better performance. Obviously, in result, it's a much better performance. But the thing that's going to stand out to me when I think back about this Brentford game as a whole is just our ability to press. I mean, we were able to get on their ass, for lack of a better term, the entirety of the match. And that was despite falling down within the first 30 seconds of the match, I felt like Spurs comprehensively outplayed Brentford for this entire 90.
Yeah, I do too. And I think Maddison was a huge part of that. Like his pressing in particular was very impressive and pretty much integral to every goal that we scored. I also think, just to circle back briefly to the cup game, Rodrigo Bentancur, I felt like had a really horrid first half. And part of that was that he just wasn't committing to the press. He was pretty much responsible for giving away possession for the Coventry goal. And he did wake up in the second half, and he was in the buildup for both of those goals that we scored. So I just think really the past week has been a story of kind of our more senior players needing a kick up the butt and having kind of that wake up call of, this run of really disappointing results that we had. But to be fair to them, like they are showing up now. And I think showing that leadership that we kind of need to see when we know that we're going to be relying on some of these younger players at times this season. And they need to see that example reflected on the pitch. So, yeah, I was really pleased to see Maddison kind of put out that man of the match performance. And, kind of across the board, like everyone just felt so much more switched on than they had in the past few games. So that was really refreshing to see. And obviously really great to see Solanke get his first goal with the club. That was really much needed. Brennan just kind of continuing to silence the haters, as y'all said. And I think Son's performance kind of went under the radar. He literally created more chances than the entire Brentford team.
That assist for the Maddison goal.
Oh, chef's kiss. Yeah. But he always goes under the radar, I feel like, which is kind of unfortunate. But
also, to be fair, he's had shit performances the last few games. And we've been asking, where has Son been? And so for him to show up in the way that he did in this league match was like, oh, okay, this is what Son under Ange can be.
Yeah, but I think Son transitions into what I want to talk about the system, because all 3 of our goals yesterday are in transition from the high press. We look very good when we play direct football, very direct, vertical, aggressive football, and we don't look good when we want to hold the ball and look to play into the box or play through a line, right? We still cannot do that. And anything good is coming from press and transition. And Sonny, my point here, everything he's done, quote unquote, good this season has been when he's in an inside channel, inverted in some sense, because we're transitioning off of a press when we've won the ball back, right? And that's when Sonny thrives. He's never been a touchline winger. Todd's talked about that, right? When you get Sonny inside and get him inverted, he thrives. And so I continue to see situations with our system where we're not utilizing players correctly in possession, right? And that's where I think some things need to be considered and adjusted at times, because again, when we're winning the ball and transitioning, we're seeing where these players are best suited to thrive, and we just don't see that in possession. So that's where I think I need to see some adjustments.
Dude, I actually think that that's a great point. And I actually noticed, I think we talked about this or someone mentioned it in the chat. It looks like Ames is going, hey, Scott, that's probably a good fucking idea. Maybe I should get the best offensive player I have on the team inverted, so into more scoring positions instead of hanging out with the fans in the first row. And what you've seen is on that side, and sometimes it switches, but on that side specifically, you're seeing Udogie as the overlap instead of the underlap, which gives Son more of that inside look. And
Exactly.
I think that wasn't happening in the first couple of matches. You'd oftentimes see Son standing out here going, hey, guys. And like while you're looking at your left back staring at Gabrielle or whatever, right? So like that's not what you want.
We saw the club share a heat map with Udogie as well on their social media accounts, which was very interesting, and it speaks just to that point, Todd. He's way more on the overlap rather than playing an inverted role in this match against Brentford. And you guys are spot on with your analysis. It allows Sonny to get inside. It allowed Madison to drop deeper and do more creative things. And it also, I want to tie this all the way back to Bentancur. Caroline, you brought up Bentancur and his play. I thought Bentancur, and we have to note, Bentancur played 60 plus minutes against Arsenal, played a full 90 against Coventry, and then played 60 plus minutes in this match against Brentford. So an important role for him, coming with, Basuma still trying to get back from a knock that he picked up during the break. So all of those things combined, Bentancur looked a lot better, with Madison being able to drop a little bit deeper and Son fill in those holes that he would leave. And that press was a big part of this. And I think, look, the matchup against Brentford and a team that is going to want to have a little bit more of the ball. You look at the possession numbers in this match against Brentford, they are way less lopsided than they have been for Spurs. Spurs actually outpossessed in this game, I believe for the first time all season in any game, 48-52. That was a product of Brentford wanting to have the ball a little bit more and play with it, unlike we saw against Arsenal, unlike we've seen against Newcastle. You're again, I'm just gonna keep giving you the plaudits, Scotty. The press and being able to take it off of them with the high press and score in that transition was the entire key to this match. And that is a product of Brentford, I think. It's a product of Spurs. I'm not trying to take any credit away from what Spurs were able to do, but it's a product of the way that Brentford wanted to play against us, and we were going to allow it because we know we can take advantage in that press.
No, I agree. And that's where, again, I don't want to dampen the mood, but sometimes over the past 24 hours, I've thought maybe Brentford did us a little bit of a favor by coming in and being willing to want possession, right? Because if you look at any team who has thumped us, they said, Spurs, you can have all of the ball. You can't do shit with it. We'll be well prepared to counter against your 1.5 defenders that you have prepared to defend a counter, right? And so I think Brentford probably missed an opportunity to come in tactically and put themselves in a position to beat us. I still think that in possession of the football, I don't understand why we're not willing to be more direct. I look at guys like Bentancur, I look at Kulusevski, I look at Madison. They all are fantastic players when it comes to playing direct passes to cut through lines. Cudi Romero, Mickey Van de Ven, both very capable of that. Pedro Porro, very capable of that. But we're unwilling to be direct in possession. We're only direct in transitions, which is that's the natural flow of football, right? You're going to be direct in transition. I understand that. And this, I'm not even saying this is on Ange. This could be the players, right? But for whatever reason, we're unwilling to be direct in possession. And I think that's really what's stopping us from beating teams like Newcastle and even Arsenal, right? So again, I still think as good as we were yesterday, we have a lot of work to do if we really want to compete for the aspirations that we have this season.
I want to double click on James Madison because somebody brought him up earlier. I think it was you, Caroline. Like I watched the game a little bit after live yesterday and came back into the group chat and immediately asked you guys, I had not looked at any reaction or anything. I asked you guys who was your man of the match, and many of you said Madison, and I was happy about it because we talked a little bit about James Madison last week after the Arsenal match, and I thought he had played pretty well, and I felt like I had a minority opinion on that. I could see morsels of what he's trying to do there. I thought he was the runaway man of the match in this performance against Brentford. He was the straw that stirs the drink. He looked like that version of a combo Christian Eriksen Dele Alli that we have always dreamed of having. And it was one match. I'm not going to get carried away. I think he has that capability when we're able to play in the way that we're kind of discussing here, in a pressing way, in a pressing manner, play those transition balls. And he got really good support around him from the likes of Sonny. Really good to see Dom Solanke get off the mark with his first goal. And Brennan, I thought, played really well too, and got the rewards with yet another goal too. What was your guys' take on Madison? And is this a performance that is like, are we going to be able to see this again, or is this just going to every once in a while he's just going to pop up and have one of these brilliant, I mean, people were giving him 10s in their ratings after the match.
No, it wasn't a 10. It wasn't a 10. But it was.
It was to some. I'll say it was to some.
No, dude, his free kicks aren't back yet. They can fuck off. His free kicks aren't back yet. And until we see the free kicks get back to that level, like Bergvall's got better free kicks than he does right now. It's still, and Porro has better free kicks than he's got right now. Like, until we see James Madison get that free kick swagger back, I want to hear about 10s. It's close. This could be a catalyst game, is the way that I feel. And the thing is that I think he's still not quite to peak James Madison, as I mentioned, without the free kicks, but the swagger's coming back. And Madison with swagger versus Madison without swagger. You saw that man after the match standing there in Mickey's shorts and no shin guards. He's a spindly little boy. I don't mean that disrespectfully, but this is a long season against hard men. And if we're having the same conversation about the Madison prowess in 10 games, it's because he was able to stay healthy. My concern, Andrew, long season. Yep, there you go. My concern, Andrew, is it's going to come down to your favorite quotable, which is his best availability, or his best ability being his availability. And I, unfortunately, I'm not there to say that he has the durability to make it the full season yet.
I hear that, but it was nice to see it for one match, and I hope to see it for a second, going forward. I'm pumped about the prospects of that possibility. What else do we want to do before we? I do want to have a Guglielmo Vicario conversation, but is there anything else from the game that we need to cover before
Decky's fucking amazing. Decky again was amazing. Everything that Decky is doing as a hybrid 8-10 in the Ange system is everything that Decky has been meant to do as a footballer his entire life. And he is a straight up point guard on the pitch right now. I've made the Luka comparison, the Luka Doncic comparison before. I stand by it firmly. It is something where watching him play, Decky has some of the best breaks I've ever seen in possession. It's wild. Yeah. His ability to shift all of that 6'2" frame of his from one direction to another while the ball is in a dead stop is nuts. It's crazy stuff, and it's awesome to see. The way that he uses his body in this league is exactly how you have to use your body in this league to be effective in the long term. He is a guy whose durability is something that I love to see, and he's shown us exactly how capable he is to weather the storm in the season and still be impactful. So, again, I think that Ange moving him in from the wing inside has been a revelation for Decky and for Spurs.
Yeah, I think as a minor thing, I also want to give a shout to Romero, who I thought looked so much better in this game than he has pretty much the entire season so far. We started to see him getting, a little more involved in like the build up with some of those like precision long balls that he's known for, especially in the third goal build up. That was basically from co-captain to captain to co-captain. So yeah, that was really nice to see. And again, I think we just needed our more senior players to kind of have that wake up call, and they're really starting to lock in now. And I think that's going to be really beneficial.
I think that's really fair. Scott, anything else you wanted to get off your chest about this game?
No, not much. Just a really good win in a time where we needed it for sure. So again, like I said, I'm going to keep harping on it. A lot of work to do tactically, in my opinion, but we got a big win and we can build off of it for sure.
Fair enough. I wanna talk about Vicario for a minute because I unleashed a little bit in our group chat yesterday about Guglielmo Vicario, and I want to be clear to the listeners, to the viewers on YouTube. This is not reactionary with me and Vicario. And I'm gonna say some things that may sound a little harsh, and I'll fully admit that. But boy, oh boy, Vicario had a wild day in between the pipes for Spurs in this game. Definitely had a handball outside the box that was not called. Even though Ange Postecoglou doesn't want to really fully admit to that in the post match, that was interesting.
Why would he?
Yeah, why would he? Indeed,
it was on the line. VAR took a look at it; it was clearly on the line. Otherwise, they would have called it. They love making that call against us.
Yeah, well, I'm just going to note that they didn't this time. So
that's fair enough.
Follow that one
and you
away.
know what? And I'm gonna note the fact that it was against fucking Brentford. So the next time we have a conversation against City or Chelsea or Liverpool or somebody in that ilk, and it's a similar scenario, he could be standing in anyway. It doesn't matter.
We'd still be hearing about it on social media, today.
Well,
if that was the case.
Yeah.
Let's put it this way. The Vicario performance left a lot to be desired for me. I'm not even talking about the goal. The goal within the first minute, he had no chance on, not a big deal. But there's just some stuff with Vicario that I'm seeing and have been seeing. This is not like I said, this is not a one-match reaction. And I want to be clear about this too. Guglielmo Vicario is not this team's biggest issue. He's not in this team's top 5 issues for me. I don't even know that he's quite in the top 8 of issues for me. But in the long term, on a macro sense versus a micro sense, I still have questions about Guglielmo Vicario that I want to have answered. And I know that he is still young for a goalkeeper, and this is only his second full season in the Premier League. There's a lot to learn there, but there's a lot to be desired after watching that. It makes it. I don't like watching a goalkeeper that makes me nervous. That's I think the baseline discussion that I'm trying to entail here. And Vicario makes me nervous.
Okay, well, how did you manage watching Hugo Lloris for a decade?
I'm
just so take a deep breath. This is a young goalkeeper in his second year in a system in the best league in the entire world. And the save that he had in the 68th minute is the reason why we're talking about such a great week right now. So at the end of the day, Scotty, I'm going to take the bad with the good, recognize that Hugo didn't become Hugo for us until season 3, and that it takes a little while to adjust to seeing fucking rockets off the boots of grown-ass men when you've been hanging out in Bologna or whatever for your entire life. So we're in a different spot with Vicario. I think that as a keeper, anybody who's stood in between the pipes, that quicksand is, in the famous words of Shane Falco, quicksand is what happens when one thing goes wrong and then another thing goes wrong and then another thing goes wrong. And the next thing you know, you're ankle deep in, you're neck deep in it. Vicario had a little bit of a quicksand game yesterday, but fortunately, when it mattered most, he was able to pull it together. And I think he is still bulking up. And I think, Scotty, the most important thing is that he's still improving. And we're seeing that. It's not happening as fast as we want it to. And I'll admit that. I'll be the first one to say that, but it's happening. And I think ultimately we're just going to look back at this in the grand scheme of things and see it as a blip on the radar screen.
Yeah,
when Trippier kicks the ball into Hugo's net.
Well said. No, I'll double click on Shane Falco, one of the greatest and most wise athletes to have ever graced any field of any kind. So I love Shane Falco. Great shout. No, but most importantly with Vicario, excellent shot stopper. I mean, at least twice a game comes up with an incredible fucking save that saves us from this season, maybe losing by a couple more goals than we've lost by, but yesterday keeping us in a position to win a match, right? So little bit shaky at times when he comes out and plays balls, especially set pieces, right? But his ability to stop shots at close range is honestly second to none, maybe in my opinion, in the league right now. So there's a lot to do, but I'll take it. I'll take everything that we get from him in sense of the good, or in terms of the good right now.
Yeah, I will say I was pleased with this Vicario performance, which probably sounds crazy, but I'll tell you why. The whole season up until now, I felt like he's been playing too conservatively and just not playing into his strengths. And he's someone who's really honest about the fact that he likes to take criticism on board. And I know he was getting a lot of criticism for, particularly like not coming out to claim that ball in the Arsenal game. So I think he kind of took that to heart and really stepped it up this game. And, like you said, Todd, you got to take the good with the bad, because he has a risky style of play and we have to kind of like accept that. But honestly, I think that when he's playing like this, it kind of empowers the rest of the team to be a little more fast paced and like just bold with their play. And I think we saw that with going a little more direct on a lot of those goals. So yeah, I don't have any problem with it. And it was a handball. We do have to admit that. But at the same time, like, to my understanding, that would not have been a red because it was not directly denying a goal scoring opportunity. So it would have just been a yellow. And that's why VAR didn't intervene. So it is what it is.
Yeah, look, I'm not saying I want to go back to seeing what I saw Wednesday in goal with Fraser Forster in there, but because that's like, trust me, that would go way higher on the list of priorities if that was the case. But I'm not hitting a panic button with Vicario. I want to make it clear to the listeners. I'm still a little skeptical. That's all. Guys, the Europa League comes up this week, and that led me down a hell of a rabbit hole this weekend, kind of looking ahead to what we have. Spurs start their Europa League campaign Thursday against Karabag FK of the Azerbaijan Premier League. They will host this match coming up. It got me really amped for the Europa League. I started looking into a little bit more of the teams that we're going to be playing, and I hadn't really dove too deeply into the draw. Spurs have a fun and interesting draw in this Europa League, and like I said, it starts on Thursday. Karabag are an interesting team. They've won 10 of the last 11 league titles out of Azerbaijan. They are 5-1 on the season, 5 wins and 1 defeat, and sit atop of their league with a plus 12 goal differential in their first 6 matches. So we're facing the best that Azerbaijan has to offer here on Thursday. They also are one of the teams that dropped down from the Champions League. They actually advanced a couple rounds in the qualifying for the Champions League, but ended up getting knocked out by Dynamo Zagreb at the end, and they fall to us in the Europa League for Thursday's matchup. What are the feelings about the Europa League this season? I know, Todd, I know you had a lot. I'm kind of pumped. I think that this is a competition that Spurs are going to have a fun time in, despite the fact that it is going to be an added game load, and it's going to cause a little bit of wear on the Premier League schedule, I think, over the next handful of months. But this is something that kind of pumps me up. What about you?
I'm fucking amped, buddy. And for those of you literally Googling Azerbaijan right now, it's on the west coast of the Caspian Sea, in between Iran and Georgia. Yep. So it's going to be interesting, that particular match, because when you have a team like Big Fish from a small town team, they have a big fish mentality. And that's always interesting, as we saw the last time that we were in the Europa Conference League yeah, you got me.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, I'm fucking amped about the Europa League. This is a trophy that we've won twice, right? Was it 72 and 84? Tony Parks at home with the big save against Anderlecht. And this is a trophy that has prestige. And more importantly, I think for Tottenham in this moment, this is a trophy that has no Manchester City and no Arsenal. And we don't have to worry about any of that bullshit or any about those foregone conclusions or any of that bias that I'm not going to point out. What I am going to say is that this is the best, from an odds maker standpoint, the best opportunity that Tottenham has to win a trophy this year. And if I'm Ange, it's my focus in so many ways. Now, Ange is going to I focus on winning every game, mate. And yes, Ange, and that's why you're Ange, and we fucking love you. But as we're taking a wider view of this, if I've got to worry about fucking playing Nottingham Forest, in the Midlands on Saturday, or I got to worry about, figuring out how I'm going to get a win against Sporting Lisbon in the fucking Europa League on Wednesday, I know where my focus is going to be.
Yeah. All I'll say about Karabag is we need to take it very seriously and be very careful, because I think they're comparable to Coventry City, probably, right? In terms of level and ability, maybe Coventry is a little bit better of a squad, but we've seen that those games can be dangerous for us, especially if we don't have our stars on the pitch, right? Our depth is still questionable for me. It's young, right? And I think that's why at times maybe our first 11 or our stars, quote unquote stars, haven't been pressed by this competition as much as we'd like to see, like a Bentancur, for example. Caroline's points earlier were well taken, right? Until some of these younger guys, these Archie Grays, these Jed Spences, start pushing the first 11, there's going to be some complacency, probably subconsciously, right? And because of that, I just think we're gonna need to take this match very seriously. Karabakh has knocked us out of a European competition within the last 5 years, if I'm not mistaken already. They're a decent side, and regardless of what league you play in, if you're a serial winner, that does something to you, right? That gives you a mentality that you take into matches that teams who don't win as often as they do don't have, right? So I hope we see a strong lineup, because if I see as much rotation as we did against Coventry City, I'm not confident that we'll get a result in this match. So yeah, a lot of work to do, and a game that can't be taken lightly.
Yeah, I agree. Oh, go ahead, Todd.
Oh, just a correction. Let's replace Sporting Lisbon with Slavia Prague. No disrespect to the Portuguese. Anyway, go ahead.
Well, yeah, I just think we can't afford to rotate quite as much for this game, I don't think. Like, Vicario has to start for me, for one thing. And it's unfortunate because we do have Manchester United coming up on the weekend, but I feel like we have to take this game seriously. And, Karabakh, they were the team that nearly broke Bayer Leverkusen's undefeated streak last season. So yeah, they're not lightweights by any means. But yeah, I'm excited for this. Like, the Europa League is kind of the European competition for geography nerds, so I'm all about it. And it has a better theme song, as we all know.
One of the
for the
teams,
win. Well done, Kaz.
One of the teams that Karabakh did defeat in the Champions League in a qualifying tie this year was Ludogorets of Bulgaria, who Spurs fans will remember because they were a Europa League opponent for Spurs back in November of 2020 under Jose Mourinho. So, like, that's kind of yeah, I think that's kind of the level that we're talking about here, if we want to be honest with ourselves. And Caroline, you alluded to it. Manchester United looms on the weekend as well, a trip to Old Trafford next week for Spurs. So obviously an important match, a result that you would like to go get as well. United played to a 0-0 draw with Crystal Palace on Saturday at Selhurst Park, and they've kind of started the season in a similar way to Spurs. Both teams on 7 points, but they're not quite, firing on all cylinders. They only have 5 goals to their 5 allowed. Spurs with a 9-5 ratio, Dolly Partoning it, if you will. So that's a good thing. And I think that Spurs should go into Old Trafford thinking that they can win a game against Manchester United in this state right now.
We haven't lost against them since 2022. So
right. And United will also be coming off a midweek game, although curiously they play Wednesday in the Europa League. They get the extra day of rest and then get to play the game at home on Sunday. I don't know what that's all about and why there's a Wednesday Europa League game, but
because they're Manchester United. Fuck those guys. Keep it moving. Yeah,
they get the benefit of that. So that's kind of what we're looking at. Caroline, I like the way you put that. The Europa League is like it's for geography nerds, and yeah, I'm kind of into that as well. I was looking the other day at the different teams that Spurs drew and where they ranked in the different pots. Like, I was getting into it and kind of looking at all the different. Spurs will actually play the highest ranked team coefficient wise and the lowest ranked team coefficient wise from the draw in there. And I'll also be really interested with this new format. How easy is it to come back from a result that you don't like? You've got these 8 matches, but you're not going to be only going up against 3 other teams in a group. You're going up against an entire slate of I guess it's 31 other teams in this 32 team format. That's how many teams it is, right? You guys are looking at me. I think that's how many teams are in this phase of the Europa League. So yeah, so like you've got to definitively get yourself in that top, I think it's 24, but being in that top 8 would be really great to be able to advance out of the playoff round immediately. So
yeah, we need to avoid that round of 32. We need to finish in the top 8. 9 through 24 competes to get into the quarterfinals. I'm curious though, and I'd love to hear what you guys think about rotation. I personally think you have to start Gray at right back and Spence at left back. I think Porro and Udogie have to rest in this match. I think Basuma has to come in for Bentancur at the 6. It appears that Bentancur is going to continue to be our first option at the 6, but I'm okay with that. But I think Basuma needs to play in this match. I'm sure Sarr comes in, right? I don't know if you start Bergvall or not. I probably don't. I think Madison or Kulusevski needs to be on the pitch in this match. And then up top, my hot take is I think Mikey Moore needs to start in this match. And I know that's like he's young and cool it with the kids and all that. But my point is they're going to sit back and they're going to block like crazy. We know it. I think he's the only profile we have right now that can beat a low block in a one-on-one situation from a winger perspective. I don't think Sonny can do it. I don't think Brennan can do it. They're both fantastic in transition. We've talked about it many times. Son is fantastic on the counter. That's why he thrived under Jose and Conte. 20 goals in one of those seasons, right? The Golden Boot in a counterattacking setup, right? He's not a one-on-one low block guy. Mikey Moore with Odegaard out, Mikey Moore's the only guy that can do it, in my opinion, from that winger profile. So I'm not sure what side it's on. That's for Ainge to figure out, but I'd really like to see Mikey Moore start in this match. I think it's time.
Let me ask you guys this question when it's related to being up top and rotation a little bit, because we did get news earlier this week that Richarlison is still a ways off. I mean, basically, Ange Postecoglou was asked about Richarlison and said, you probably shouldn't ask me about him until we deliver an update, because it doesn't sound like he's even close to returning. And it hasn't even been training with the first team. That leaves Dominic Solanke as obviously the option still, but where are we at with him? I think he's looked good and I want him to keep playing, but I also want to keep him healthy as we get into a lot of these games. And this past week alone, he went 90 against Arsenal, 62 minutes against Coventry City, and then 88 minutes against Brentford. If you're looking at a Thursday, Sunday turnaround, how much do you need to protect Dominic Solanke and maybe play Mikey Moore through? If you're talking about playing Mikey Moore, maybe trying to play him through the middle or play Sonny through the middle with him out wide, something of that nature.
I think I'd probably put a 45-minute cap on Dom in the quarterback game if you even play him, and that's just my perspective. You could also do a little bit more rotation with some of our frontline guys and play like Timo through the middle if you absolutely had to. Bite my tongue. I think Will Lancashire is close to full fitness. And if he is, I love Will Lancashire against Quarterback. I think that I would actually, Andrew, you and I can have a side conversation that may include a wager if we get that discussion. I think that he absolutely fits the profile of a big, strong guy who can find a corner, and it absolutely lines up well against what Quarterback's bringing to the table. But I love the shout of getting Mikey Moore in there. I really do, because Mikey Moore can play in so many different places. You even may play him through the middle, Scotty. We don't know. Ange is the guy, so we'll see. But as far as Dom, Andrew, 45 minutes, probably no more. And I probably try to, hey, go out there and score 3 goals this half so I can rest you, is basically the way I'm looking at it.
That would be super, super nice. But yeah, we'll be back to talk about the men's side of things, because that, like I said, 2 match weeks are kind of what we're going to have here for the near future. But Spurs women also got off on a really, really nice start this morning, Sunday, a 4-0 victory over the newly promoted Crystal Palace to start the WSL season. It was a delight to just wake up this morning and flip YouTube on and be able to stream this game live on YouTube. I would love for there to be a little bit more coverage, a little bit more ancillary coverage still, but maybe we're working up to that with the WSL, but the YouTube ease was nice. Starting 11, Caroline, I don't know how you felt, but this looked like a fairly, decent starting 11. It did not include Bethany England, which I think was maybe my only surprise. But what about you? What was your take on this 11 for Spurs women that we saw against Crystal Palace?
I was a little less surprised than you that Beth didn't start, not because I don't have faith in her, but just because I think Martha Thomas had a really strong preseason. So that felt expected to me. However, Martha had a lot of really high quality chances in this game that she did not convert. So, we'll see. I think that's just going to be probably our most competitive position this season, honestly, because you also saw Lena Gunning-Williams come in, a really promising young forward who kind of immediately made her impact on the game. But yeah, I think otherwise the starting lineup was pretty much as I expected, with the exception of I kind of thought Olga Attanen might get the nod over Evelina Simonen. But to be fair to Evelina, she got an assist, so that's great. But I think everybody contributed, honestly. Like, it was just a very comprehensive game from the whole squad. And I think the really encouraging thing is that our new signings fit in right away. Haley Rosso obviously getting the first goal on her debut. Matea Roth looked really great in the midfield. And we didn't really get to see too much from Claire Hunt because our backline was not particularly tested. Crystal Palace only had kind of a few moments of sustained attack. But yeah, it was, I think, just a really great statement win. Like we kind of have talked about, needing to have a really strong win to start the season, knowing that the schedule is only going to get harder from here on out. And we're in second place on alphabetical order. So that's nice.
Yeah, I did notice that. That's basically joint top after a 4-0 victory, which is kind of nice.
Brighton, who saw this coming?
Yeah. I want to double click on the new signings. We saw the three debuts, Oraz, Hunt, Rasso, like seamless, I think is the word. I mean, it was especially Rasso was just that winger. Like, I mean, it was honestly, the goal was, almost a little bit reminiscent of the Brennan Johnson goal, I thought.
Exactly my thought. Yep.
And it was like, oh, this looks a lot like it could work in this system, and it was really, really impressive. I thought the other two performed extremely well as well. Oraz, like you brought her up as maybe being a little bit undersized in the transfer window when she came in. Boy, did I feel like I underestimated that. But
she held her own.
But played so big and played like way bigger than her stature, which I was really like kind of wowed by. It was really fun to watch. And I don't know, just like this was another one of those, like when you look at the statistics from this match, super dominating, right, Scott? I mean, we're talking 17 shots on goal to 0 for Crystal Palace. There were really no threats. I think that was almost the most calming part of watching this match this morning. It was, the goals were not pouring in until it was a 1-0 lead at halftime, and you thought, okay, like let's go get some more in the second half. And Spurs didn't take their foot off the gas whatsoever, and certainly poured on 3 more, right?
Yeah, I mean, the first takeaway for me is that we identified areas of opportunity to improve the system. We went out and got really talented players in those positions, and as you said, they seamlessly slotted right into the system. So great work off of the field this summer by the women's team, without a doubt. And credit to the club for that. And then I look at just the system in general. We were humming today. Absolutely fantastic. The off-ball movement is perfect, dare I use the word. And what I love most about what I saw today is we knew exactly when to go direct with our football. And I talked about it a lot with the men's team, right? I promise that this isn't reminiscent of that conversation, but the way that Robert has the team prepared to be direct when it's the right time to be direct is beautiful. I think there's so much emphasis on possession and build up and all of this in football now. It's quite robotic, right? The game, and you can blame Pep and the likes of Pep for that, right? But when I look at Robert and what he's doing with his team, I don't see that, and it's super refreshing, right? The team is just, again, well drilled, and we're well prepared to know when to keep the ball, when to go direct, and it showed in a thumping 4-0 victory today. And I know it's Crystal Palace. I know they just came up, but with the expectations that we have as a club on the women's side, there's no better way to step into the campaign and say we're here to fuck some shit up. So I was super happy with what I saw.
I mean, it's hard to argue with any of that. Being tied for top of the table is incredible. I agree. I felt like the team looked very well drilled. Shout out to Ash Neville, who was an absolute terror.
She was awesome today
on the pitch today. It was incredible to watch, mopping absolutely everything up and being a catalyst for a ton of attacks. So this looked like a team that recognized the level of competition they were going up against this year and raised their level to that. I think they're ready to compete this year, Andrew, and I'm excited to see it. Hold on. One more thing. I'm sorry. Shout out to YouTube. That fucking coverage was awesome. The FA player is 100% dog shit, and they know it. And this thing let you know exactly why. It was seamless. I was able to watch it from multiple devices at the same time. I was able to show it to my kids in the other room and say, hey, look at this. The Tottenham women are playing, and they were able to look at it. These are the types of things that you want as a viewer at 6 o'clock in the morning when you're trying to catch a women's match instead of the spinning pinwheel of death. So YouTube, shout out to you. Tottenham, excellent job, and fuck the FA player. Keep moving.
We just want a halftime show.
Yeah,
that was my one complaint.
Full agree on everything there. We just want a little bit more ancillary coverage. But yes, the ease of use with YouTube is, it's just there that where the FA player was not able to bring it. So I completely and fully endorse everything you're putting together there. It's a great start. I don't know if I'm ready to say this team's ready to compete in the WSL, but I definitely think that if this growth level continues that we've been seeing under Robert Villaham and that we saw last year, I definitely don't think there's any reason to believe that this team can't make a jump into competing for Champions League places. We just don't really know. I mean, it's one game for everyone, but we don't know we don't know how far off, if at all, Chelsea will fall, for example. I mean, Chelsea, a 1-0 victory in their opener against next week's Spurs women opponent, Aston Villa. So, we'll see kind of how the other teams that are going to be in competition look as the WSL season unfolds. But thus far, it's nothing but good for the start that they had, a 4-0 victory. And as I mentioned, next Sunday, a trip away for Spurs women to Aston Villa. So another opportunity to go prove it, go perform and prove it. And I'll be interested to see too. And Caroline, I wonder if you have any thought on this, whether or not Villaham is going to have just a preferred 11. Obviously with the new pieces coming in, this is something that we'll have to play out over a few games, and form will certainly come into a factor, but there are options, and the options that came off the bench in this match I thought were really good options to have. It's the kind of thing you want for a team that's going to compete and perhaps even compete in multiple fronts with League Cup games coming up. But what are your thoughts on that, just briefly, because when you're bringing Bethany England off the bench, it's not a bad thing.
No, it's not a bad thing, and I do think the forward line is kind of going to see the most flex throughout the season. To me, the defense is feeling pretty locked on unless we see, Ash Neville drop off a cliff. Clearly, that didn't happen today. She looks better than ever. But I think the center backs, looked pretty good together from what little we saw that they had to do. Amanda Nilden is an absolute warrior on the other side. Shout out to her and hope her eye is okay because she took a pretty tough blow to the face. I just think Robert is pretty good about playing the players who are in form. So there's potential for things to change, but I do think that the starting lineup we saw today was probably close to our best 11, really, all things considered. And I think that they performed like they were the best 11 as well.
I'll be really interested to see it going forward. And as I said, we'll be back to pod about it next week after they face Aston Villa. That's gonna, I think, do it for this week's edition of the Tottenham Depot. Be sure to check out our episodes on our YouTube page, youtube.com/Tottenham Depot. Leave us a rating and review on your podcast app of choice to help spread word about the show. You can follow us on social media at Tottenham Depot, Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky, Threads. Reach out to us on all of those different places. We'll have another 3-match week, I guess, to talk about next week, as unfortunately we do have to deal with the fact that both the men's and women's matches next Sunday are on at the same exact time. Another like complete pain in the ass type of thing. They both literally kick off at the same time, and so we'll have to navigate, basically all of us will have to navigate both of our eyes on one match at a time. And then we'll come talk about it afterwards, but we look forward to that. You can follow Scott at Scott G Bird. You can follow Caroline at CG Stefko. You can follow Todd at TC_Show. You can follow me at A Stetka. And again, follow us at Tottenham Depot on all social media. Till next week, this has been the Tottenham Depot podcast. As always, come on, you Spurs.